Hello everyone, Zach here from the Carnival of Randomness on behalf of our sponsor, Upsitnik and Associates. In these unprecedented times, we reflect on our future, both in the next few weeks and months, but also the upcoming years and decades. And it's time to prepare for that future. Upsitnik and Associates has been contacted by many healthcare workers, as well as old and new clients, to prepare wills, powers of attorney, and advance directives, also called a living will. All of you need these documents, so don't say you don't have any assets to speak of, no children or other dependents. Regardless of the circumstances now, you will need a will for today and tomorrow. Al Upsitnik feels so strongly about having wills and other needed documents prepared that Upsitnik and Associates can prepare your will, power of attorney, and living will at no charge. You heard that correct. No charge until the end of 2020. No hidden fees or gimmicks. Al feels so strongly about planning for the future at this time that he is willing to assist you with your future. Trust Upsitnik and Associates, attorneys for 42 years, from the Supreme Court to Alaska and everywhere in between. You can find them online, upsitnikslaw.com, on Facebook, Upsitnik and Associates, or call them toll-free 1-866-391-3299 to prepare for your future. Hello everybody, it's Zach, and welcome back to another episode of the Carnival of Randomness. I know it's been a while since we talked much music on the show, so I reached out to another of my myriad of cousins. He is a singer, songwriter, and musician in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and he's here to join us for a nice little sit-down. Well, I'm sitting down, he might be sitting down, I don't know, I can't see him. But anyway, joining us momentarily is my cousin, Jared Paciulli. So let's welcome him, and let's sit back and enjoy the show. Say, buddy, how's it going? Thanks for taking the time to sit.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Oh, not bad. Now, I know you didn't hear my intro, but I introduced you as musician, singer, and songwriter. Do you think that's a pretty accurate description, or maybe a little too much? What do you think?
I agree. I'd say singer-songwriter, yeah. And a little bit of a dabbling musician with a couple other instruments.
All right, so what's the rundown? What are you going or playing these days besides the guitar?
I've been doing the acoustic, but bass has always been my main instrument. That's what I started as, and I mess around with the drums a little bit. I'm starting to get a hold for basic 4/4 beats and putting in my own little fills.
Nice. As a non-drummer, I have no idea what the hell that means.
Oh, just, you have, the basic beat you always hear, and then they'll throw the tom hits in, and you can just, I feel like the drums, it was a cool instrument learning besides all the other ones, because I like the bass and the stringed instruments and stuff, but drums was pretty cool because it's more of a feel. You just kind of go with it. Once you learn that basic beat, you can mix and match and just throw little different things in. Because it's not really to a note, it's not in...
Right, you don't have to learn, how to hit a certain note. You just need to really get a good hold of the rhythm.
Exactly, you're not in a key, you're just percussion.
Right.
But I will say, I've been playing I've been trying to get back into piano because I got a keyboard.
Oh, yeah?
Been playing that a little bit.
So you're setting up a whole little studio for yourself then, aren't you?
Yeah, I got a little room. I'm gonna get that hopefully set up with soundproof. Those low paneling foam boards. I want to get that in there because that works pretty well for the sound suppression in the room.
All right, so actually, since I don't even know the answer to this one, how did the start come? What made you start wanting to get into playing and making music?
The very start point was Sammy, my sort of cousin, friend of the family.
Yeah, yeah.
He was in a band because his dad was real musically inclined, and he was in this little shock puppets band, and he was 9, I think, and I was only 11 or 10, and so I was over at their house when they were all down in the basement playing, and he let me pick up the bass, and he was showing me a couple things, and I think it was because I'd gotten into the Beatles around that point, and and he taught me how to do Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, just that little intro, because it's kind of moving down the fretboard. Well, so that was my first pickup was the bass.
How old would you have been at this point?
that no, you know what? I might have been 12 or 13, not 11.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 12 or 13. Yeah, because I was in middle school actually. Now thinking about that, he would have been 10 because he's 2 or 3 years younger than me.
Got it. So it was that, and
But
then the Beatles followed, and that's the one thing I've said to you is I kind of hear like a Beatles style and influence in some of the songs you've sent out. And
oh yeah, they've been a big part of my life since middle school, and I've gotten through phases of other bands, but I've always loved them, and they've been a big influence in what I do, especially like you're saying, sound wise.
Well, and I know tons of people obviously are fans of the Beatles. What was the song? What was the one that got you? Was there one in particular, or was it just
earliest song I can remember of ever hearing was Maxwell's Silver Hammer.
Oh,
And that was really early. That was before I even knew the Beatles.
right.
Because when I found the Beatles, I was like, oh, wow. And Rocky Raccoon as well, because there was 2 animated videos on YouTube. And me and Luke, my little brother, when we were younger, we used to go on and watch those on YouTube.
And I was going to say, because growing up, you know, my mom and your grandmother were huge into the Beatles, so we heard them quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, but my dad, as you know, is not.
No, your dad is not. He is he did not follow on with that, but so and
he
then it
kind of got me into country a little bit, though.
Oh boy, really?
A little bit.
I'm gonna have to talk to him about that. But so it was. I mean, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people. It's listening to a band like the Beatles, and more specifically the Beatles, is what really gets people wanting to do, you know, to do music and play music. And I'm wondering, you know, had it been another band, do you think you would have still wanted to do it? Like, had it been like Led Zeppelin or something, rather than the Beatles?
It could have driven me in maybe a little bit of a different push. You know, like I think I could have still had, like, if I maybe would have started, like you're saying, with just Zeppelin and heard that, and that was like my main foundation, I might have had more of the rock and blues kind of vibe than more of a alternative, psychedelic, or not even so much psychedelic with everything, but just more of an alternative kind of sound to it.
Right. All right. Well, let's just walk on through the progression. So now you're starting to get the bug. You learn Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. So where do you go from there?
I think a week later, me and my mother and my stepfather, we went into, Guitar Center, and they picked me up a bass and a bass amp, which I still got the bass amp. That's my favorite amp, but got me that, and that's where I'd sit in my room for like hours and just kind of play Beatles, try to learn the songs. I'd look up the tablature on like ultimateguitar.com, look up how to play it, and that's where I started. And then once I picked up with guitar, which was the acoustic, that's when I started learning more about the chords and a little bit like of the theory behind music. And then from there, I'd say once I learned chords on the guitar and I knew how to keep progressions together, I kind of wanted to songwrite, because I dabbled a little bit with GarageBand, like whenever I was in middle school, but it wasn't really like recording how I do now, how I can have my interfaces and my mic setups. It was just all the digital instruments, and I'd put stuff together with loops or whatever. But by the time I'd learned acoustic, I'd wanted to start writing songs. I started doing that and recording off my phone, and then it moved. I got the MacBook and started doing stuff off of the GarageBand program on there.
Well, how difficult was it to kind of transition from playing music to writing music? Because those are two entirely different animals.
I can say it's whenever I first started, it was a lot harder, because like I was saying, I didn't know much of the theory behind it, so I was derived off of knowing tablature and like seeing like the lines on the screen and numbers for which fret I'm pressing. So I didn't really understand any scales, or like if I play all these notes to this key, they'll all line up, so I could mix and match how I slide to the next note or switch it up. But I didn't know that at the time, so a lot of it was a lot basic, and it was a starting route, you know. So I'd have to sit down and try and figure out really hard like how I was going to make it sound all right, and I'd have to work it out. But then as I got more inclined to learning about theory and chord progressions and how all these notes will match with this specific chord because it's in that key, and then you can freeball a lot of stuff a lot better from there. So it was a gradual learning process, and I didn't really start getting into the scales maybe till like a year after learning acoustic and like starting to songwrite.
Right.
So it was a lot more basic, and I feel like now I can go a little more with it because I do understand where I can take it instead of it maybe being just like, for example, whenever I first my buddy Eli, I was in a group with him, and it was me and him had just gotten back together, and we hadn't talked for like a year, and he had learned guitar, and I'd been playing bass, so we got together, and he knew the chords, but he didn't know the theory behind it. So what we would do is, and I still didn't know like the notes on the fretboard, so like when we'd try to like make a little jam or something, he'd play the chords, I'd figure out what chords he was playing, I'd sit there and kind of tinker and play notes to see what would sound right with it, you know what I mean?
Okay, so it was more just seeing what sounded right than
purposefully
purposefully knowing what to play to make it sound right.
Exactly. Because like now I could, if you told me the songs in the key of E, I could sit on my bass and I could keep going with riffs and just, in that scale that I know with that key, and I could make stuff up off the top of my head to go with it. Whereas before it was a lot more, I had to sit and like think about how I was going to put it together.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not that I don't now, just it was a less understanding. I really feel like, not knowing like all music theory, but I feel like knowing a little bit about it, like chord progressions and how they work with scales and all that. I think it's a great thing to learn because I always refused to learn scales, and I'm starting to learn a lot more now too, like even on the electric guitar.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps with like your creativity flow because you're able to just do stuff right there once you know the scales, because any of those notes you hit, even if you may hit it wrong, it's still in the same key, so it won't sound horribly off, if you get what I'm saying.
It'll sound a little off, but not like, whoa, off.
Yeah, not like it's in a totally different key or wrong note.
Right.
But I feel like, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I feel like that was definitely a good thing to learn, and I'm glad I'm starting to get more into learning that instead of how was my first mindset about it was I didn't want to learn any of the scales. I just wanted to sit there and play, but it's definitely... Anybody going into it, I would say I would have tried. If I would have done anything different, I would have tried to learn all that stuff earlier,
right?
Instead of putting it off.
Yeah, and like you say, now it's like instead of saying, okay, what could sound good here, now you're able to do like, okay, the song is in the key of E, so now I know what I can put in here.
Mm-hmm.
So it really narrows it down, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I can just sit there and kind of riff to it and play like and like I've noticed like, and you can, I mean, everybody, there's an obvious thing, every musician has their own unique little sound that like if you hear like what Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers playing the bass, you can tell that's him playing bass compared to maybe if you heard John Paul Jones, like if you heard just an isolated, you could maybe pick up and be like, oh, that kind of sounds like how he would play. The little things that they do consistently, but it's changed because you can hear it a lot of times whenever I'm riffing on stuff. It's the same, only different.
All right.
It's like I have my own like I use a lot of this like box scaling.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty much in the shape of a box on the fretboard, and you can move it all up and down, whereas a lot of people use different scales, and you can hear like different musicians that use certain scales more, like DeLorean scales and all those kinds. Which would be more like Pink Floyd and David Gilmour. He uses a lot of those out there kind of scales, and you can tell the difference between just hearing that, like who plays what and what makes them keep going with it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to word it. I'm not wording it great.
Well, no. I mean, it
everybody has a sound, and you could pick. Like what I'm trying to say is like, you can pick up off of somebody's sound, like, and hear them and be like, oh, I recognize it as that person. And I may derive my bass lines all a little differently, but it's all within the same, like, you know.
And I was
I have the same kind of rhythm.
Gonna say that, and now that you say that, I'm thinking about some of the bass players I know, and it's like, okay, yeah, whenever you hear them play, you know that's them playing. Because they just throw their own specific style on there.
Exactly, style. That's what I was trying to go for. I couldn't think of the word though.
Yeah, and I guess that's how, advancements in music are made, is somebody takes something that they've heard that they enjoyed, they use it as a, basically a starting point, and then they put their spin on it, and then somebody will hear theirs and put their own spin on it.
Mm-hmm. And everybody has technically their own little unique little thing that they'll do.
Right, because even if you're playing the exact same notes, you're not playing them the exact same way.
Exactly. It could be different timing, 4/4, 3/4, different, like a little bit of a swing to it. There's so many. That's what I've been learning too, like learning more different beats and everything. There's so many variables you can go with music.
Which is cool. And when you were talking about box scales, like, yeah, I played piano for quite a while. I'd never heard of anything like that.
Oh, and and like I said, I honestly don't know if that's a real term. It's just it's a fretboard and it's in a box. It's just a scale. It's like if you looked at the fretboard and you know how it's all lined up.
Yeah, yeah.
You take like 3 of those and you just box it up and just work the outside of the box up the fret, like on the same notes, but working up the strings. And then that's a scale in itself. And then you can take and mix and match, add notes, filler notes in between those. And that's like the style I like, is being able to box it and do a lot of sliding in between.
Well,
so you'll hear like a lot.
If it's not,
you'll hear a lot of it
now.
Repeat. Yeah, you'll hear like in a lot of my bass lines, if you would hear that scale being used a lot, and it's in different keys, different notes, but it's that same kind of concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
All right. So,
and then
what's that?
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, just on the songwriting thing, because I find it really interesting, because it's something I've never tried to do. How do you start it? Do you go into it with an idea of a beat, or do you go into it with an idea of lyrics, or do both go in at the same time and you just start from there?
Well, that's because I know people that are like, they will strictly write one way. Like my one friend, he'll strictly go in, trying to have a concept for a song, and then he'll start making the music and writing the lyrics to it. Now that's kind of like how I do, but it's I can go around all around. I could start out maybe like, oh, I think of this phrase in my head, I'll jot that down, and then I might think of a melody for it, and then I might pick up the guitar and figure out the chords to go with it, and then just start singing it. Or I could be playing the guitar and be like, oh, I like that progression, and just start singing along with it, thinking of lyrics. So for me, like, I know people will stick to like I know some people that stick to just like one method or the way they do it. I can go all around with it depending on the song. I feel like that's how it is for me. Depending on how the song is, I could start with the music and end up with the lyrics. Or maybe I started with some of these lyrics, I thought of this in my head, and then I tried to work music in around it.
And that's actually something I was going to ask, because you said you would think of something and then write it down. Is there any like times you're out anywhere and just see something and it's like, hey, that would make a cool song? Because I know Rob has mentioned in the past a musician friend of his, Greg Townsend, who saw somebody throw a cigarette out of a car at night, and I think the sight of it and the result of it spawned the song Sparks on the Highway.
Okay.
So is there ever been anything like that where you saw something and you're like, dude, that would make a cool song, and then you kind of turned it into one?
I personally haven't. I've had that similar, like I've been out and I've seen something and I've thought of maybe a lyric or an idea but like not for the whole derivative of the song, but I get what you're saying there. Like I've, a lot of it's like, kind of what's going on. Like I wrote this one song about, what was it?
I don't know. It was your song.
I can't even remember the name of it or the lyric, but
typical musician.
I know,
Jesus Christ.
Typical. Exactly. Right. You get in the loop. I get in this thing where I used to do it a lot. I'd sit and I'd just try to do a song a day because I got GarageBand on here and I had my whole setup. So I would just try and sit and write every day.
Holy hell!
They all start to blend.
Yeah, a song a day. Good Lord, how long can you even keep that pace up?
I mean, like, they don't all get finished,
Well, right, but just
you
like
might
so,
have the
like a
little
new idea
acoustic
every
track.
day.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of it too is, and I was like kind of like stagnant in the beginning because I didn't do that. I mean, I try to write a lot more now because I felt like obviously, the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Right.
And I feel like that exercise, like with what I've been coming out with now, and I'm gonna hopefully go into the studio with a guy, Daniel Blake. I've been talking to him on Facebook, and I know friends that deal with him, and he's a really good guy all around. And he's gonna get me in and record me either this fall, or if he can get me in earlier. But I'm gonna do a little EP, and with the songs I've been writing now, I feel like all the stuff I did before was what got me to the point that like I can have a lot better melodies and things that aren't like a repetitive song. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you
And I'm
want
sorry if
something
I'm
that
going on.
you want something that sounds you rather than what sounds like everything else.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
even because a lot of my songs, not that my older songs are the ones that, I'd sit and I'd try to write out a song or get like at least a verse out a day. They're not all great. They're not all horrible. But some of my songs that I even liked before, I sit back and I think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, that like, yeah, I can see how that's like all right, but it's not. It doesn't. It's very basic in the sense, you know what I mean? And I feel like me being able to have been able to do that over and over, and obviously you do something more, you get better at it. I feel like I'm getting a little bit better of an idea of how to come up with a melody, make it a little more unique, add a little more notes to the way I sing it,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. And I feel like my voice has expanded in the past 3 years of singing because
Yeah, well, and again, the more you do something, the better you're gonna get at it. So the more the more you sing, the more you're gonna kind of fine tune the vocal cords.
Oh yeah,
and that's gonna let me go all music on you. That's going to potentially increase your range.
And that's I noticed too within the past couple weeks. I feel like because I don't know, it was something I've been trying to get higher noted songs. And I have been able to not fully hold them. Like I would go out to a show and play a lot of these, but I have been trying to expand my vocal, like you're saying, my vocal range even further. And I've heard a lot. I should probably quit smoking, but they say I heard my buddy told me when he quit smoking, he was able to hit things, hold out notes a lot longer.
Right.
So that would be, and he was able to get into higher ranges. So I've been thinking about that too.
Well, and I would think that, I don't know for a fact, but I'm going to make a bold assumption that the vocal cords are kind of like a muscle, so it would be like, any sort of athletic training, the more you do it, you're going to hit a certain limit at first, but then the next time you try it, you're going to be able to go a little further, so...
Might be able to stretch it out a little more.
Right,
yeah.
I'm kind of thinking
maybe
that's what it is. Maybe that's how these guys, were able to... to train to do some of the, when the Bee Gees sang, it's like, how does a human being of the male persuasion sing that high for that long?
Oh, yeah. They go pretty high. But it's,
I was going to say, I'll throw in my vote for who I believe was the greatest vocalist to ever live, Freddie Mercury. The stuff that guy could do was insane.
I don't know who I'd pin down as the greatest, but I would definitely say he's one of the greats. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
His vocals are insane.
Yeah.
Him and guy from Journey.
Oh, I don't.
He does some. I can't think of his name. He has a good range, and I forget. And then they say Paul McCartney and a couple others. It's in Axl Rose, and I think Freddie Mercury was one of them. They have this. It's only certain people ever. It's a 5-octave voice, and it's like it's only like, I mean, probably thousands of people have it, but it's still like, I mean, think about how many people there are.
Well, right, so, thousands of people have it, but probably not all those thousands of people are in the music industry.
And and there's billions of us on this planet. So right. There's been a couple musicians that they've labeled, like if you listen to the screams at the end of Hey Jude with Paul McCartney screaming, he's hitting a 5-6 or a 4, or not a 5.6, a F6, which is a really, really high up there range.
Wow.
And he's belting it, not like falsettoing it. Because it's easier to falsetto.
You can tell. Falsetto, it sounds a little different.
Yeah, because it's a higher and it's real soft, and you can get your voice to maybe hit that higher pitch, keeping it soft and low. But to actually belt something out and use your diaphragm, that's when it's like you got to stretch there. And like I was saying, it's crazy that like I was looking at that list, and it was like 10 musicians that have had 5-octave voices throughout history.
I'm gonna have to look for that when we're done recording this, because I'm curious about.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because it's something with the vocal cords like that's like allows certain people to stretch it out even further. It's like kind of like a not an evolutionary trait.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, you know,
I would say maybe like it's the vocal equivalent of being double jointed almost.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
So that's interesting.
Just being able to get a little bit more on it.
Yeah, so that's cool, man. I'm definitely looking for that article because I want to read that because I'm.
It looked at a 5-octave. At 5 octaves. That's insane.
And if anybody's ever looked at a piano keyboard, 5 octaves is, what would that be the equivalent of? 40 notes?
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's been a while since I played, but I remember there's 8 notes in an octave.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically a range of right under half of the piano keyboard. So you're looking at a very impressive range no matter where you start and finish it.
Oh, yeah. And it's and you definitely, like a lot of these musicians too, they don't, like, I've heard a lot of songs where Paul won't use that, but he does in a lot of these songs. And if I want to ever cover it, like sometimes I'll cover songs of his, I maybe have to drop it down a key or two.
Right.
You know, I have to drop the step of the song, like a half step down to make it more suitable to hold.
Your range.
Yeah. But some of the, what was that? I like the end of, with Freddie Mercury, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
The vocal and all those, he has a really good vocal range as well.
He definitely did, and the extra thing on him was his voice was so unique that as soon as you heard like 2 words, you're like, oh, Freddie Mercury.
Yep.
To go back to that whole idea of uniqueness when you hear somebody great doing it and you know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there really is no mistaking Freddie Mercury for too many other people.
No, and it's like it's in the Lennon-McCartney harmonies. Like if you hear that, like you know automatically. Oh,
right.
that's
you're not mistaking them for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
He caught me mid-mouthful of coffee.
Oh no, you're good. I wanted to.
No, I'm good, but my computer almost wasn't.
Oh.
Well, actually, here's one we've posed to other guests in the past. Who's your favorite Beatle?
My favorite Beatle, Paul McCartney.
I was going to say, I was going to guess Paul because of just how much you've been bringing him up, and it's at the end of Hey Jude. It's like, okay, I'm betting he's a Paul man.
Oh yeah, big Paul guy. I loved. I started the bass, and then obviously Paul plays bass. So I've liked him, and I like Lennon. Like don't get me wrong, I'm just not so big on his on like the way he lived.
Right. And while
you know what I mean,
you can separate the musician from the person, it still kind of makes it hard.
Exactly. I can appreciate his music.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question he was a great musician. Was he a great person? No, not really.
Exactly.
And
I bet Paul has his faults or fallacies too, but
yeah, well, all of us do as humans.
Exactly.
See, I always was a big fan of George.
I was gonna say though, George is not bad. George would probably be my second, whereas most people would probably put John right below Paul. I'd put George there.
I go George because he was good, and he was kind of overshadowed, but at the same time, he was an incredibly necessary part of the band.
Oh yeah.
Like, and I don't know, even if they kept everything the same, I don't know, would they have had the same success without George? I don't know. Those speculation questions are always fun.
Mm-hmm. And I watched this thing not so specifically about George, but it was this guy, and he was talking about like how like people say like Ringo was a basic drummer, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at also with some of George's stuff, it was simple, but it held the point. Like it did the stuff. Like it did exactly what it needed to do.
Right,
with that.
exactly. And that sometimes that's what you need. You don't need to be the greatest drummer in the world to be a success. You just need to be a consistently reliable drummer.
Exactly, and that's what this guy was like, because he's like, well, because he was shown he played In My Life with the drum beat of Ringo, and he said, well, now what if I was the greatest drummer in the world, joking around. He started doing all this crazy stuff, and it doesn't fit the song. It's what the song needs, you know?
Yeah.
And if you can find that exact thing, no matter how short, sweet, or simple it is.
Well, you know,
not to say that all of it was short and sweet and simple, but like, there was a quote from George Martin. They said it was a total embarrassment. If you've ever heard "I'll Follow the Sun" by the Beatles, I think it's off of a Beatles for Sale album.
I probably have.
George Harrison's solo is like 3 seconds long, and it's just like 12, not even 12 notes. And I think George Martin said it was like they were all embarrassed by it, but you listen to it and it's what it needed. It
right,
didn't need
exactly. While it may have only been 3 seconds,
what it was.
While it may have only been 3 seconds, it's what those 3 seconds required.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, and I know some people are down on Ringo because he wasn't like a Neil Peart from Rush, who was a hell of a drummer, or John Bonham, but the Beatles didn't need a John Bonham.
They needed a Ringo.
Right, exactly. You know, and when you get that guy who can play that role and play it consistently, it doesn't matter if they're elite status or not.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Which I think is just kind of cool about music. Because you got guys who can do something really, really well, but at the same time they can't do something real basic. Like, you know, case in point, you know, my dad played bass for a while. You know, I don't think he can read music.
Can't read.
I don't think he can read music. No,
like sheet.
Yeah, like sheet music. I don't know if he can. I know. I could have sworn years ago he said he never could. But, you know, whereas I can read sheet music, but I couldn't get out there and play anything even remotely like what these guys are doing.
Oh yeah, no, I understand that. And then like you have I have because I don't read sheet music, and I do, and like. I understand tablature, and I'm starting to get the scales now. But I was playing with these kids for a while, and all they knew was a tablature, like the follow it note by note, like seeing what finger to press. And the memorization was insane because they'd play like Metallica riffs, and they were just shredding it. But they couldn't like if I told them, hey, like I'm going to play these 3 notes, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But they could, and it was insane because the memorization, especially too with them tablatures.
Well, and that's actually an interesting point because I would consider tablatures a form of sheet music, as it were. Not all sheet music is the same. I can read like sheet music for a piano. I can't read a tablet. I can look at a tablature and know what it is. I can't make heads or tails out of it.
Yeah.
So I guess you and I are kind of the opposite. Like, you know, I can look at I don't know, a piece of Beethoven sheet music, and I can hear it in my head because that's the kind of reading music scale I learned to read.
See, now that's what's always fascinated me too about sheet music. So, like I said, I learned it when I was real young, and I learned like the basic, like I forget like what the acronym was that they said for all the, you know, the notes going up it.
Yeah, but, that's the basic I learned. It was FACE, FACE.
Yeah.
Then there was every good boy
does fine.
Yeah, does fine. And then there was another one. It's escaping me at this point. Or all cars eat gas. Those were the ones I learned for the different notes.
Yeah, and like, but then like you have like I learned that. So, but what blows my mind is like with my girlfriend, and I know you played well into high school and you're an adult, correct?
Yeah, I basically played up until I left for college when I was 18.
Yeah, so then when you start getting into all that, like I was saying, I learned when I was real young. I learned the basic that, but it blows my mind that that piece of paper can show the timing of the song and the melody and the timing that you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that this innocuous-looking piece of paper with weird symbols on it can tell you everything. The key, the pitch, the tempo.
How they want you to sound with the other instruments in the
right,
timing.
And even how long to hold a specific note.
That's exactly that. I don't understand how that's all written down. Like, I could learn it. I bet if I was taught, or I sat and,
you definitely could.
But it's just, like, as an outsider, because, like, you know what I mean, looking in on that, because I know a little bit of I knew tablature, but a lot of it's just from me knowing the notes and everything now.
Right.
But looking at sheet music, it just blows my mind knowing that people because I was in whenever I went to Jeanette for my senior year, I ended up sitting a lot into the marching band classes, like whenever they do all that.
Yeah.
And I was in there with my buddy, and it's just, I loved it. It was so cool because, like, everybody just flipped the page, they'd all have it, and they'd all be in time together. Just, different, and it's that blew my mind, because even, like, a lot of the times when I'm in a 4-piece band, it's hard for us to all hold down, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Even for the best band, it's like, but, like, I couldn't imagine adding 14 other people into the mix.
Well,
and they'll all start and get it like that.
Yeah, like, like a symphony. It's like, good God,
yeah.
Can you imagine? And I think that's probably the crazy thing about that, is they have, sheet music for each different instrument and where they're playing, but still, to actually be able to, as a writer, write that. Like, I know, like, okay, the piano's going to be doing this, the violin will be doing this, the cello will be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like writing it for one instrument is bad enough, let alone, 30.
Yeah, a whole symphony.
And it's like, and then we have the first violin who's going to be playing this melody. Second violin will be playing this melody.
Yeah, because you have sections for each instrument, too. Right. It's not just one of that instrument.
But I'll tell you, though, it's actually a skill that I've found doesn't really go away. It's like riding a bike. It just gets rusty, because a couple years ago when I was back at my mom's house for Christmas, she has the piano up on the loft there.
Yeah, the grand.
Yeah, the little baby grand. And I went up there and I found some of my old sheet music. So I sat down, put up, it was actually Moonlight Sonata. And I just stared at it for about 10 minutes as stuff started coming back to me. And I was able to sort of hack my way through a rusty version of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, at that point, I hadn't really played piano in, probably 15 years at that point.
Fun fact, not to cut you off, I know you just brought Moonlight Sonata.
Yeah.
I got a little Beatles trivial fact.
Go ahead.
John Lennon and Paul admitted to this, but when John wrote the song Because off of Abbey Road, it was Moonlight Sonata pretty much played backwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they did a cappella for it. Well, it was originally supposed to just be a cappella.
Yeah.
But they ended up adding that guitar, and they played it, and because that was his inspiration for that song. I always thought that was weird, because you hear Beethoven. It's kind of the same progression, but totally different spin.
But really, who knows that song if it was played backwards?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a completely different thing. But that's cool. I'm gonna have. You know what? Next time I'm gonna have to listen to that too. I added it to my list of stuff to do after the interview.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. See that? But that's why I think. And I've always said this, that I think music is kind of a universal language.
Oh, everywhere you go, you go to
any
small
village in Africa, and they understand the concept of
they're
rhythm,
banging, keeping time, and maybe they don't sing lyrics, but you hear like a lot of tribes they'll still hum,
or if they have lyrics, you don't understand them because you don't speak their language, but at the same time, it's music.
Exactly, you can be like, oh wow, they know the and it's exactly like you said, that one of the universal things, like it's just in us, or not in us, but like it's just a trait that like is there.
Yeah, like we recognize when something is in a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we understand what it is, we just know that this is something different. I guess probably because rhythm, like in music, really doesn't happen much in nature. So it's something so unique that we're all having to listen for.
Yeah, and we got a keen pickup on it. So when it does happen, we're taking it in and knowing. And it's like, you got I lost my train of thought. My bad.
That's all right. Well,
I do that all this time. All the time.
Everybody does. Well, we'll come back to it if you think of it. Who did you grow up listening to, music wise, besides the Beatles?
It's gonna be a little weird. Went from Black Veil Brides when I first started, like really listening to music like intently, and it was a lot of rap music with like Machine Gun Kelly when I was in middle school. But I got put in an alternative school, and that's when I started like getting into the older sound because of my friend Eli, and that's when I got into the Beatles. And I was like, oh, okay, I remember like Maxwell Silverhammer and Rocky Raccoon. I was like, I didn't know that was the Beatles, and then I really got into them. But the first 60s song I think that got me into everything was what was it? Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit.
Oh, okay, that more psychedelic feel to it.
Oh yeah. See, come again with what you asked. I started going off a little bit.
Well, no, it was just basically who was like when you were in the car with your parents. Who were they playing?
A lot of my dad, like I said, a lot of his stuff was country. He listened. He started getting into more of the heart, like I listened to like the rock and stuff with them. He played a lot of he's listening a lot more now to Breaking Benjamin. But when I was younger, it was more of the country, just what was on the radio. I didn't really listen to music. You know what I mean? I can't really remember getting into music until like my teen years, and that was whenever I was like going through my weird little phases and my little goth music, and I'd listen to Black Veil Brides, and my brother was into all that kind of stuff, Attila, all those bands, and then I kind of got into rap, and then all that. But I can't honestly remember what I listened to solidly young, like in my young years.
Well, like
because it was really what was pop. Like if I heard
whatever was on the radio that was being played at the time.
Yeah, like I guess it was that I was young. Whatever I was hearing around, because it wasn't like I had people really that were like my parents. They don't play instruments or really like music people, but it was whatever was around.
Well, I know growing up in the car with my dad, especially, we would always listen to as I call them, the oldies. So he had a friend who recently passed away, Mark Wallasick. We called him Gator. He would make these mixtapes, and yes, cassette tapes, ladies and gentlemen, of like different 50s like Motown and doo-wop songs. So that's the kind of stuff I grew up listening to.
More the older,
like the 50s, Motown sound. That's what my dad was into. My mom.
That was what, like right when Elvis was coming in, right? That was that era.
Yeah, like that era. Like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Okay, would that be considered Motown and stuff?
Yeah, or the doo-wop songs. Yeah, just real simple songs, simple melodies. My dad was a big fan of the 3-chord progression. Get in and out of a song in under 3 minutes, and
get people's feet moving.
Right, and that's the kind of stuff I grew up with him. My mom was always a big fan of Elton John, who amazing pianist, by the by.
Oh yeah.
But so it was everywhere, and then me and your dad, because this was the era we were in. I remember he always had the Beastie Boys tape, Licensed to Ill.
You know what? I do remember him playing that now because he always played that Paul Revere one in the car.
Yeah.
I do. That's one. There's one. I do remember Beastie Boys from when I was young.
Like, we would be going down the road just very poorly singing Brass Monkey or things like that. But then the rap, when I really first started to notice rap was about the time MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice came around.
Okay. So that would have been, that's 90s, right?
Yeah.
That's like later 90s.
Quote unquote rap. But, and then I started getting into like, good rap, like Tupac and all those guys.
I never really listened to Tupac. I've heard some of, Biggie Smalls.
Yeah.
And all, like some of the other, like Ice Cube's pretty good. I've heard a couple of his.
No,
But I'm not like a big rap guy. I did get into it when I was younger, but it was a lot of the stuff like, I don't know. It wasn't like, now that I listen to it, I like more the hip hop. And that's what all that older rap I really think was, you know?
Yeah.
It was a lot more lyrically involved than it is right now.
It is, and that's why I really liked Tupac's stuff, because some of his lesser played songs, shouldn't say lesser known, but lesser played songs, if you listen to the lyrics, they're really good.
Yeah, they tell a story. They give you more.
God, yeah, they tell a story.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's not just repeating Gucci Gang 58 times in one chorus.
Yeah,
you know. But
alas, it makes you wonder if Tupac was just starting out today, if he would actually be a success.
I seen stuff like that too, like with all like musicians, like like the Beatles, like Paul, would he still have the success?
Actually, yeah, that's a good speculation question. Let's riff on that for a minute. If the Beatles were just starting now, would they have the same success with everything else that's going on?
In my honest opinion, I don't think they would.
I don't either, just because this isn't a knock at them by any means, but their songs were rather simple at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because, like, my whole idea, I always thought that they started it, but what it really, if you look at it, it wasn't really so much they created the sound as they created a little different feel to it and popularized all these different sounds.
Yeah, they may not have created it, but they really brought it to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. And, like, they may have added their spin to it, but, like, they made it popularized and brought it into the world.
Yeah, and especially if you see, if you look at pictures of them in their old days, like from their appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show, that look I don't think would work today. You know, 4 dudes with goofy haircuts wearing suits.
Oh yeah, no, it wouldn't fly today.
What social media would say about that today?
It would have to be totally different.
Yeah, and then at the same
time,
and
the other thing is too, they probably wouldn't have that sound.
What's that?
I said in the same time too, they probably wouldn't even have the same sound that they would have wanted, that they do now. Like if they were starting today, say they were all born in our era, here now, it'd probably be totally different. Because I mean, you look at even where Paul McCartney's going with his music now; it's a lot of pop music. It's more pop.
Yeah, because
like
of how
today's genre.
Our tastes have changed, and even tuning technology has changed.
Yeah, so even if they were around, like in speculation, thinking about it, they probably wouldn't have even been the same sound if it were all the Beatles, if they were born in our era. It wouldn't have even, it would have been totally different. They would have had different ideas, guaranteed.
So that's an interesting thing, and I love speculation stuff like that. We're gonna have to do actually, you know what, Nick? I want to do another one with you at some point. Maybe we'll do that, just a whole bunch of like music speculation ones.
Oh, I'm getting into some music speculation, and I know I get into this. Like I said, I'm not a full believer in it. I'm a skeptic. I like listening to all this stuff, but there's a conspiracy out there that Paul McCartney died in 1966.
Oh, I've heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I've said, I'm not a believer. I'm a skeptic. Like, so it's like cool to listen and speculate about that stuff, because there are a lot of weird things. Because there's hundreds of different clues just on like
I'll give the conspiracy theorists that they've put some thought into it. I don't believe it, but at least it's like these are some pretty impressive arguments, even though I don't believe them.
Yeah, and then my other thing at the end of the day, too, is they weren't dumb. If it really is and they were throwing all that in, it could have been publicity ploy, too. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Maybe they did it on purpose to get people thinking.
They played it real weird.
Yeah. So, but that's a good idea for a future episode. Now,
oh yeah,
I'm going to start to kind of wind this one down. This is something I like to ask. What are you actually playing? Like, I know you've got... what instruments, but what makes are you actually playing? And is there something you prefer or something you desire?
Wait, what?
Like what make of guitar do you have? Acoustic.
Oh, I just have for my acoustic. I got one of them starter acoustics. It's a Glenn Burton. My dad got it for me. It's just a starter kit. But then I have my bass is a Yamaha, and my girlfriend recently got me a Ibanez electric guitar because I had a little Squire, But then she went and got me an Ibanez, so I was pretty happy about that.
Well,
So
what was the keyboard you just got?
that one's what is it? I think it's a Yamaha as
I was
well.
going to say, if it's a Yamaha, that, and I've always felt that interesting. It's actually Yamaha is one of the biggest producers of pianos out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yet so many people think of them as like cars and motorcycles.
Yeah, and then like a dirt bike or a quad. Yeah,
Right.
that's what I always thought, because it always like weird whenever I first started getting into music. That's funny because like my buddy had a Yamaha, and I was like, they make that stuff, and he was like, yeah.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's crazy.
I was like, I thought that was dirt bikes and stuff.
Yeah, and then it's like, holy God, they make a shit ton of pianos.
Mm-hmm. That's like a big part of their market. Is it instruments?
Yeah.
They don't make bad ones either.
No, that's the thing. Yamaha
price.
pianos are actually really good pianos.
And their guitars, their acoustics aren't bad either. My buddy had a Yamaha acoustic, like a starter out one, but it's $150, but it was really nice sound.
That's crazy. Hey, Yamaha,
Yeah.
sponsor me. I don't think anybody in Japan is listening. But now here's one that's weird, and I just thought of this. As we're recording this, every day I go through for social media and find like a weird quote unquote holiday, and the other day was unusual instrument awareness day, and for that I posted a picture of a flugelhorn.
I didn't see that one.
What is one weird musical instrument you would love to learn how to play if you could?
A weird musical
Yeah,
instrument.
just something like unusual, like not like the mainstream, like guitar, drums, piano, like like the bagpipes or something.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna stick with string, but if I could learn, I would love to learn a sitar.
Oh, there
Yes.
you go.
I've obviously George Harrison used it a lot, and I love the sound he did with it. And then the Rolling Stones used it couple times, and you got Moody Blues using it.
Yeah, and you talk about
I've always loved the
a
sound of it.
unique sound. When you hear a sitar, there's no mistaking.
Oh,
for
you
anything
know it.
else.
You hear it, and it's like, yep, that's a sitar.
Yeah, doesn't take you very long to figure it out.
Mm-mm.
You know what I've always
In fact, I think the first popular song to ever use it was mainstream song was Norwegian Wood. That was the first hit song to ever have a sitar in it.
Quite possibly. Yeah, mainstream in this country, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think that was the first U.S. chart hit that had a sitar featured in it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I doubt, I don't remember any Elvis, sitar solos.
Oh, no. But, and obviously in India, they've been using that for years. Because I've also been looking into, you see how it expanded out from, I think it was, I'm not sure, don't mark me 100%, but I think it did start in Europe, the first, form of a guitar. And it was during the medieval ages, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Across the world, and everybody started doing their own stringed instrument. And you can find all different kinds of strings. Like you get the pipu from China. There's so many different stringed instruments that just sound.
Yeah, interestingly, we had a girl on the show a while back that played the pipa.
Or the pipa. I said pipa. I never know how to pronounce it.
I didn't either, but she came in. She's from China. She's an amazing player, and she pronounced it pipa. So I was like, okay, now I know how to pronounce it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I've always seen it. I've never heard it, so I've always been looking at because it's
oh my god, it is a fascinating
plugin
instrument.
For it on GarageBand.
And it really, if you've seen it, it really reminds me of a lute, just in the shape.
Mm-hmm.
Except whereas the lute had the neck kind of bent back at that 90-degree angle.
Yeah, it almost has like a violin kind of sound, like that string, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you hear it, you know what it is. It's like, oh my god, I've heard that.
No, no, that's the one that's plinky, right? Yeah, that's
the the mandolin one. Yeah, I know what you're thinking of. The one where you play it with a bow.
ERHU. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I don't know that one very well.
But that's a Chinese instrument as well. But it's like it has I think 4 strings, and it's almost like a violin.
Yeah, isn't that the one they play it with a bow, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might
I know what I'm seeing it in my head. I don't know what the hell it's called.
Yeah.
But
But it has a nice sound to it as well.
It does. Very unique sound as well. Well, the one thing I've always wanted to do to learn, and is the steel drums that they play in the Caribbean.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Those things are just so cool, and you watch
people
where you
play playing at the resorts and stuff.
Yeah, it's how the hell do they do that? It's like they're just hitting a different flattened out area inside the drum, inside the barrel. And it makes all these sounds, and it's ridiculous.
They have all those little indentations in them, don't they?
Yeah, and I think each one. Yeah. I think don't quote me as gospel, but I think each one produces a different tone.
Okay, so that's what them. Okay.
Yeah.
So it gives them a nice different sound, and they can hit all around. So it's like percussion with notes.
Yeah. So I've seen some insane steel drummers on YouTube, and it's wow, that is cool.
I'm gonna look that up because I know what you're talking, but I haven't I totally forgot about that as an instrument.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Because I've seen it when I was younger and stuff.
Yeah, but that's for some reason that one's always just stuck with me as, God, that is really cool. That would be amazing to know how to play properly.
That would be pretty decent.
And actually, what brought back into my memory, the show Tacoma FD a couple episodes ago, they had one where the guy was playing the steel drums. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that.
What show is that?
Tacoma FD. It's by the guys who, some of the guys who did Super Troopers.
Okay.
And
so
it's basically like a kind of a comedy firefighting show. It's goddamn hilarious.
Well, I was gonna say if it was made by them, it's got to be pretty funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. Well, all right.
Tacoma FD.
Yeah, Tacoma FD, like Tacoma, Washington. Yeah.
Okay.
It's on True TV, I think, but it's really good.
All right.
But, well, as we wrap this up, I know you had sent me a song a while back that you wanted to play at the end of it. What is it? I got it written down. Peace or Revolution?
Yes.
So I would like to give you the floor, because we're going to play it at the end of this, with your permission, obviously, because copyright strikes, yada, yada. Throw into it, tell us about it, a little bit about, what it is, the inspiration, and then we'll roll right into it.
The whole thing about that was because everything's everybody knows that whatever side you are, the political climate's a little hot. My idea behind it was just kind of a neutral stance, you gotta think of it at the end of the day as you can't fight fire with fire, or we have to realize that peace has to come before anything else. I mean, because at the end of the day, I think about it. We're all human.
Exactly.
We all come from the same thing, and doesn't say that specifically, but that's the idea behind it.
That's the idea behind it.
Crazy things are happening in the world, and do you want to have peace or do you want to create more chaos? That was the whole little message behind it.
There you go. Is this have you put out any albums yet?
No, this one is going to be, I'm going to be, whenever I go in, because I might re-record it or keep this version of it whenever I go into the studio in the fall, because I'm going to try to get a 5-song EP out.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well, I know.
And Zach,
in the intro, I said, you're down around the Pittsburgh area. Where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, listen to some of your music, all social media stuff? Facebook. Do you have
I'm all Facebook. I was gonna say Jared Frank Paciulli on Facebook. Instagram would be JP Music.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag you in this when I put it up there, by the way, so your friends can listen to it.
Yeah, so I'll get you all them links, and I wanted to thank you again, Zach, for having me on.
Hey, no problem, dude. Oh wait, do you have a Bandcamp page or anything?
I don't have a Bandcamp. I do have a SoundCloud, and it's Jared Paciulli Music as well.
All right, so there you go. So. Yep. Off of the future to be released EP, we're going to throw to Jared with Peace or Revolution. Did I get that right? I closed the window, so I don't know. Yeah, Peace or Revolution. Yep. And you want to come back and do another one? We'll do a musical conspiracy theory one.
Oh, yeah, I'm down. And again, I appreciate it, Zach.
All right, dude. Well, you take it easy, and everybody else sit back and enjoy the song.
Do you want to understand that there is no solution? It's when we fight, and it's when we fall. It's when we sit right back and never answer to the call. Can't you see the hatred in the streets? Sounds like there's a better way to me. Peace or a revolution? Do you understand that there is no solution? Peace or a revolution? Do you understand that there is no solution? It's when we lie, hide the truth beneath ourselves. It's when we make our own sounds look straight from out of hell. Can't you see the pain and agony when you march yourself out right between the middle of the street? Do you peace or a revolution? Do you understand that there is no solution? Do you peace or a revolution? Do you understand that there is no solution? Yes, I do, and I know it's there. Do you understand? Yes, I do, and I know it's there. Yes, I do, and I know it's there. Do you understand? Yes, I know it's there.